Come on, everyone sit down and listen to the greatest debate in all of history. We'll give you everything that you've been missing. Introducing Nothing Special.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Nothing Specialty Podcast, where we dive into deep discussion and hard-hitting debate. My name is Chris, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Ben.
What's up?
Well, if you were talking to me.
One day they'll answer back.
Well, nothing too much is up with me.
One day all the voices in my head will talk back.
Yeah, and then maybe they'll come up on the mic. Is that what you're thinking? Because if they answer
That'd
you,
be pretty trippy, bro.
no one can hear them but you. Jeez.
No one can hear about the leprechaun telling me to burn the place down?
Nope. And I'd appreciate if you did not heed his guidance.
Well, it's not your place.
So, so what's going on?
Work, some writing.
Some writing?
Yeah. I can't talk too much about it, but long story short, I got a job with a little while back. I got a job with a company that has I don't know if you've heard of those companies that do they crank out books like it's like a factory thing.
Huh.
But I signed a non-disclosure agreement, so there's only so much I can talk about. But long story short, I got a job with them. So it's a little side job. It's something I can just enjoy doing. It doesn't really feel like work. So it's nice.
Yeah, color me jealous.
The only downside is deadlines.
Are you writing or editing?
I'm writing. I submit it to an editor and a lore expert, and they do what they want with my work from there.
Oh, okay.
But it's part of a very big series, though. But that's most of what I can say.
Huh.
But I've been enjoying it. So a lot of my free time now, I just write. I drink some bourbon. I'm like the depressing writer, except I don't think I'm depressed.
Yeah. It's hard to tell sometimes, I admit. But yeah, I've been
I just think it's funny that my idea of writing is bourbon.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been writing a little bit myself. I've just gotten a few chapters of my own my own baby that I'm nursing. But then I've been helping a friend as well with editing and writing and stuff for his book, so that's kind of been distracting me, but it's something to build my chops with, so I'm ready to go all in on my own ideas, if that makes sense. But I think none of that is something that corporate people would be interested in. That's just our own little adventure with book writing and publishing and stuff.
Gotcha.
But anyway, so have you been following the news?
I have been. Some interesting stuff happening.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like going into politics when I'm having because to me this podcast is about fun and just enjoying everything. And I also don't want people to think we're too heavy and opinionated on very serious stuff. That being said, can't really avoid that in the news right now.
Yeah, it's a little divisive.
However, I've gotten some fun memes. I've gotten some fun memes out of it. That I can say. Some military officer sent a tweet out to everyone saying, to calm everyone out there, no, you are not going to be drafted. All of you are too fat, out of shape, and can't shoot. Your country does not need you. Yeah. And I was just like, damn. He's not even calling out protractors from the whole event going on. He's just flat out saying, all of you fat neckbeards who are afraid of being drafted, all you weeaboos who don't want to have to Naruto run at the Iranians, don't worry, we don't want you.
Yeah, I feel I don't know how much of because I've just been listening to one source, so I know that I'm only getting one side. I haven't done very much research into the other parts, but it seems to me there was people came up to bat and then they just backed right away because they did not want to poke the bear much more than was necessary. So I mean, their little retaliation didn't kill anyone, and it was just so they could save face, and now they're done. They don't want any more of us, and they made some mistakes too, but it's just No one wants a World War III, so I doubt it's going to happen.
I agree. Most countries, so like America nowadays we use our economy to get people in check.
Yeah.
We will use our military when we need to, but like our economy is actually a much better, and our influence on the Western world in particular is a much more influential thing to other countries, especially since countries like Russia and China, it's actually not beneficial for them to get into a war. So the small ones who might want to try are very they're far enough out there to where once they also poke us, they realize they won't win. It's more or less if they, like North Korea, for instance, if they started stuff with us, they wouldn't win. They would just probably get a good few bruises on us before we made a new parking lot where that country is. But our ability to use our economy and world on the world stage is, and other countries can do this too, but us and China have the two biggest power over that, and it's a great way to keep people in check.
Yeah, I think
like when people were upset during the 2016 election, Hillary Clinton wasn't threatening to nuke Russia. She was threatening more sanctions, and that was enough to make people fearful that Russia was in a tight enough spot to where they might have actually made military action because our economy was that oppressive to them. Our ability to use it as a weapon.
Yeah.
So our economy is so strong, we could actually end up causing a military conflict if we abused it. That's how great of a deterrent it is.
Yeah.
But I agree, no major world power would actually want this. I'm sure most of them would blow a lot of hot air, and there would be a very short Cold War where we all pointed a bunch of guns at each other, and every country involved would be like, oh, our leaders will not get reelected, and this will be a permanent stain on us if we start this shit.
Yeah.
Also, what good is going to come for this for our country? Like, yeah. I think Putin, for instance, or I know for a fact he likes his country to be somewhat unstable and other countries to be unstable. It gives him bargaining power. But there's a difference between being unstable and murdering half his population. I think if he killed half his population, maybe they might choose a new president. Yeah. And maybe not in a way he would enjoy. I think the biggest reason this got as inflamed as it did, and so for the record, I'm usually pretty critical of whoever's in power at the time. But in this case, the only thing I could say is I feel like the White House should have done two things. Every other time throughout history we've made a major military decision like this, they get what are called the Big Eight involved. Part of that is getting the top leaders of Congress and the Senate involved, as well as other staff. Essentially, you get all the branches of government together and you're like, this is happening, it's classified, it's top secret, yada, yada, yada. This is what we're doing. It was done without talking to them. And it was done right after a supposed scandal. We still don't know where that's going, but supposed other problems. So there's already tension between them. And it's coming into an election year. So I don't think he necessarily did it for bad reasons, but I think it came off that way. And I think because he is upset with those groups of people, he was like, well, I'll get back at them by not letting them be involved. But what it did is it just caused confusion.
Yeah. I feel like, though, with
like that would be my only criticism.
I can see how it could be, taken as that, like he was trying to misdirect from other scandals that were happening to him. But I heard from somewhere, and I need to check the source, so don't take it for like gospel, but I heard that it had been in the works for at least 9 months, that they were tracking and trying to get a kill on this guy, because he had just for decades been one of the worst terrorists there is, and leading the whole, like, he got a prominent position in the Iran government, so he was even more dangerous because he not only had the terrorist regimes behind him, but a lot of the government as well. So he was kind of a key between them, a link between them. So he had been in the crosshairs for a long time, and it just so happened that now was the best time to strike. So it wasn't any kind of fast, sudden, he just woke up one day and decided, you know what, I'm going to kill that guy over in Iran. It's just, it wasn't like that, I actually agree with you
like I said, I'm usually pretty critical. I don't think this was necessarily a snap decision, especially since I know from looking at previous conflicts we've had with terrorist groups and stuff, we don't usually get to make snap decisions like that. It's not that we couldn't, it's that it's not usually logistically possible.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you are correct. He was a leader of a terrorist group who got a prominent position. Like I said, the big problem was simply not being very good at communicating it to the right people. And while he wasn't necessarily obligated to, like I feel like we underestimate just how much just blowing people off in our government like proceedings is. Like a lot, like for example, the what's it called? The speech to the nation that happens once a year that Trump was asked not to do at Congress.
The State
and a lot
of the
of people
Union
threw
or
a
something?
fit. The State of the Union. There we go.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I couldn't remember at the time. State of the Union. Like it's very unprecedented for the president not be allowed to do it, but technically he is an invited character into that event. So I think it's a similar thing. It's not that he made a bad decision, it's the way he made the decision. And like there's just certain things we do in a certain procedure in our government, and when we stop doing it in those ways, it's seen as possibly a bad thing. Like I said, I think the only thing he did wrong was being poor to communicate, and I think it did come from a place of spite to an extent.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying he should have told them 9 months ago, because I don't think that's how it works. It's like when we went after Osama bin Laden, the top 8 were there. And there were people who were very staunch political enemies of Obama in that room.
Okay.
So to say that it's like, oh, just because you have we have political differences, therefore I'm not going to invite you, like, that's not really a valid reason. Because at the end of the day, I think when it comes to threats like that, our country is very good about putting those issues to the side. We understand that our disagreements on political issues end when it comes to dealing with threats to our country, if that makes sense. So, like, that's what I'm saying is it was poorly communicated, and then for a while until finally a press release was done, he pretty much said, "I don't have to tell you anything." And it's like, you're technically right until Congress forces you to. And even Republicans were on board forcing him to tell it. And like, I always think it speaks volumes when people who will defend you to the death say, we kind of need to know. Like when Mitch McConnell says, President Trump, we need to know, I feel like that speaks a certain level of volume.
Yeah.
And luckily it didn't get to that point, because I think that would have been a shame. But it was the whole, I can do what I want and I don't need to tell you. And it's like, again, technically, yes, until Congress votes and says, yes, you do.
Mm-hmm.
Also, he also released a tweet that the one that I found both amusing and kind of childish, which was him saying, this is he said in his tweet, this tweet is an official declaration that any military action against us will be essentially met with very harsh penalties. And also, this is my official notice to Congress that I will be doing this.
Yeah,
and
a tweet is not official.
Look, I don't think so. There you like again. Technically, I could see it being argued that legally it is official, but he also called it acceptable and official.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it legal? Yes. Is it acceptable? I'm willing. I think I can go out and say no.
Yeah.
Especially since things like that can be deleted. I understand the internet remembers forever, but technically he could get rid of it. Not that he would be successful, but he could try. So it's not like so I think there is there's a way you do things. And it's like I said, it's just, I think there's a mixture of childishness from both sides, but we really should put those things to a side when it comes to our nation's security. At that point, we're just children.
Yeah.
It just makes me sad, I guess. That's what it ultimately comes down to.
And I feel like,
but I also agree that there will be no World War III anytime soon.
Yeah, but I feel like when talking about, like,
at least because of this,
big things like war and like big decisions and, you know, killing someone that's a terrorist, like all this. Like, well, you didn't quite do the right channels, and so okay, reprimand him, like tell him do it better next time, but still huge win for America and against terrorism in general, and I feel like that's just trampled on. Like, we're not really talking about how awesome it is that Iran is not as big a threat as it was a month ago, you know?
Yeah. No, I've heard people on both sides of the aisle say good and bad things about this whole event. So I feel like it's easy for us to get caught in our personal feelings on a person and kind of like tune. Like you said, you've been getting it mostly from one source. I've been listening to a mixture of Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Breitbart. I don't really like Breitbart, but it's unfair to give one news outlet a fair shake and not the other, because that's how news outlets get to indoctrinate you. Mm-hmm. But and I listen to the press release too, so it's but it should be worrying.
I just feel like the focus is off. We're focusing on the wrong thing. That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. But again, I agree with you on that. But in this case, he created his own hell. He created the problem that is now a thing.
Yeah, he
had every ability to prevent it. So that's where I'm like, so I'm not going to blame the people who are reacting in a not necessarily the best way, because he started the thing that caused the reaction. Mm-hmm. I'm going to just say you're all being a bit silly, and like, because like I said, I'm not going to take a side when two people are acting silly.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how I would even compare it to if I were to insult you to the point to where you punched me. One could argue, well, he punched me, so he's the real, like, he did the real bad thing here. We're taking away the wrong thing from this. But I also insulted you, so like that has to be taken into account. I'm not saying this situation is the exact. I'm just comparing it for cause and effect.
Yeah,
like there was a cause and effect here that one party had control over.
But that, like, it's not a party; it's a guy who had control over it, and the guy is the leader of the executive branch.
Well, no, I'm when I say party, when I say party, I don't mean political party. By the way, I meant like if me and you are two separate parties, and that we are two different voices and opinions. Like,
yeah. Okay.
So I didn't mean political party. I apologize. I should have phrased.
Do you think that the outcome would have been different had he had more people in on the decision?
I do. I think it would have been better. I actually, one thing I can say is I do think one reason he might have kept it to himself. Again, I don't think this was out of maliciousness, but I think it could be argued that he did it also to get a political win. Like if he brought the others into the room, it's a win for America. If he brings only himself and his most trusted friends into the room, it's a win for him. And I feel like that is an important difference. Again, this is and that brings criticism, like the handling it that way. I'm not saying that is why he did it, but I could see a valid argument for that being the case. It's not really provable, but from an outside perspective.
So you said that Obama did his kill better because he had more people in the room, but that kill
because he had more people
was a win for America and for him. You know, or more variety of opinions, right?
When that originally happened, there was actually a lot of back and forth about it. A lot of people said. So one of the big things I heard was, I don't think at any point he claimed any. Like, if I remember when I listened to stuff, I didn't really hear him like try to take it all as like, this is my win. This is a big, like, he said, today America, like when he even told the world about it, he was like, today America, we did this with the brave men and women in our military, essentially. And then I heard a lot of criticism from both sides. One side was criticizing everyone else for not giving him credit. The other side was saying, well, it's not his win, it's the CIA and the military's win. And there's a valid argument there that no matter what, in Trump and Obama's case, they simply got to say, yes, go kill this person when the opportunity was there.
Yeah.
They simply got the opportunity to say, yes, let's kill this person.
Yeah, I do give you that. He is definitely or at least it appears that he is flaunting it more. He's bragging more about it, but that's kind of baked into the cake at this point, you know?
That's why I'm saying I don't think it was out of maliciousness. I think that's who he is.
Yeah.
He is that's why I wanted to make it perfectly clear. I'm actually trying really hard not to come up from that angle, because I really think it's really easy, because there's already been a lot of inflammatory stuff right now about current political issues. So it's really easy for people to jump to a side right now. That like this problem came at a time where we're already really divided on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so I said, I think it's easy for us to lose sight of that and try to jump one side or the other. So that's why I look at it from purely the objective stance of, this is what happened, here's what caused this little scene, what could we do better?
Mm-hmm.
Also, again, everyone else is like, oh, we're going to be like, the people who don't like him are like, we're going to go into World War III. And it's like, I think you underestimate just how big of a stick we have.
Yeah.
Like, for all of you who don't know, that means Theodore Roosevelt said, speak softly and carry a big stick. In other words, don't brag and be boisterous, but if someone decides to come at you, you hit them with the big stick and you put them back in line so they remember that you don't fuck with us.
It's called deterrence, something that was lost in the Middle East. But now I hope that it's back.
Yeah, that's kind of on us. So I'm not saying him. I think just America in general, that's kind of on us that we packed up and kind of left a power vacuum there recently. So that's its own issue. Anyways, we should probably get on to other topics, because we're getting pretty far into this one. And this is just current events.
Yeah. So have you seen any... I just barely finished watching The Witcher. Have you seen any of that or anything?
I have not. Is it fully out yet? I usually wait till those things are like the whole season is out before I try them out.
Yeah, season 1, all 8 episodes in it came out at once. It's a Netflix produced thing. So it's coming out all at once on Netflix. And the season 2 is greenlit, and it's they're, I think, filming it now, and they're planning on releasing it in 2021 sometime, probably early.
Is it good?
So, but yeah, and it was greenlighted for a season 2 before season 1 even aired. That's how confident Netflix was in it, and the confidence was well placed because it was fantastic. I feel like
I'm really happy because they do, like, they're very hit or miss with their series sometimes, especially when they're based off of previous like lore and fandoms. Yeah,
well, I liked this TV series as much as I liked the Game of Thrones books, and I liked them more than the series.
That's impressive.
So it's like the amount of craftsmanship that went into the plots, because there's like three main storylines with 3 main characters that it kind of follows throughout, and they intertwine at different times, and they all start at different times. So they're showing you these scenes back to back, but they happened decades apart and you don't know it yet. And so you're just kind of wondering how these different events are going to unfold and match together. And then you finally see how they interact and how these 3 main characters come together and kind of how their fate is entwined. And it has a lot of themes with fate as well. And it's kind of cool because it's a magical place. And, you know, in a magical place where you can make up your own rules, you can make up that there is a fate that is definitely omniscient and knows what it's doing and has a plan. They don't ever like try to call it God or have a religion around it or anything, but it's kind of when you make a promise to someone and going back on it, it's like karma. It's a big, like, that's kind of what their fate is karma evolved into its own being. So they kind of they're just it was just really cool how they did it across those 8 episodes. Because it really felt like 8 unique, like, little movies almost, and not just, well, we're continuing on this episode. You know, last time this happened, now we're continuing. Oh, what's going to happen next? You know, it's not like a normal serialized adventure. It was like 8 movies that, you know, shared characters and progressed them in their development and stuff, but weren't necessarily, like, they didn't go front to back exactly all the time. You know, there was gaps between, and so a lot of times stories were wrapped up by the end of an episode, but the bigger plot and bigger stories were still left with loose ends so that they could pick them up in the next episode, if that makes sense. I don't know. I really liked it. It was fantastic, and I really want to actually go and read the translation of the books, because they were originally Polish books, but they have been translated into English. So I was wanting to find out about the source material and how the writer framed all of it, because I don't think the writer did all of that in the same way. And I say that mainly because I read some on the wiki that there were 2 books that were compilations of short stories, and I think a lot of what the series on Netflix did was take from those short stories and develop them while taking these 3 characters and doing their thing with them. So they kind of used those stories, because I think this whole season 1 that just happened is kind of like the intro to the saga, the 5-book saga that happened with these 3 characters. Like, I think a lot of it was their backstory and how they met and how they got together, and now they're going to go on this epic 5-book journey together, you know, or so, like, together and not together, and doing their own thing, of course. But it's, yeah, so I think they really didn't just word for word take from a book. They really got to know the lore and the world and all the stories within it, and crafted a beautiful narrative over those 8 episodes.
Okay. All right. That's good. I'm glad now I can look forward to watching it even more. It's a shame that it's going to take a year to get another season, but that's what happens, sadly.
Yeah.
How many episodes are in this season? 1?
8.
Oh, that's a shame. How are they, like an hour long each?
Yeah, at least.
Oh, okay. That makes me feel better then. If they were like shorter, then it would suck more. But
yeah, I feel like the last one was a little longer than an hour, but I didn't look at the runtime. It just felt like it was going longer. Like, it should have been over, but it was still like at the climax and still going. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so good.
Gotcha. I was just curious if it was like the Castlevania Netflix series. Like, I really like that one. I hope they are still planning on continuing it. But like, it took a while to get them, and when they second season came out, like the first season didn't have a lot in it, and when the second season came out, it was only a few episodes. And it was just one of those times where you're like, I feel like I'm only getting snacks of this, and it's really good. And I was just like, that'd be a shame if The Witcher ends up being the same thing. It's like you get a season and it's like, oh, it feels like a snack, and I have to wait a year for the next snack, you know?
Yeah, I think the next season is also going to have 8 episodes, so it's I think it's going to be a substantial load every time.
I'm happier.
Yeah.
Okay, if they're an hour long each, though, that makes me feel a bit happier. I would prefer like 10 to 12, but 8 is acceptable.
Yeah.
If it was 4, I would feel like a bit cheated.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that sucks when it's tiny like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
but okay, that's good to know.
So have you been watching anything recently?
Same stuff as usual. I've been binge watching The Simpsons since I have Disney Plus. Like, I'm a big Simpsons fan. And there is a lot of Simpsons episodes. So that's actually, I haven't even watched The Mandalorian. That's how much I've been watching The Simpsons.
Well, I haven't watched The Mandalorian either.
And well, I mean, I only bring that up because I've heard a lot of people say, like our friend who was on the podcast last time, like, only reason people get Disney Plus is The Mandalorian. And I'm like, dude, there's like hundreds of Simpsons episodes on there.
Yeah.
Like, you do realize that, like, to get all the Simpsons episodes is hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
So if I get to pay, even if I only had Disney Plus for 3 months and I got to watch all of the Simpsons, I got my money back times like 20. Like, the value there just with that. I understand everyone likes The Simpsons, but like, I mean, in my opinion, it's one of the best shows ever. I think it's definitely not as good as its older stuff currently, but still, just for like the first 20 seasons, which is like the premiere stuff, like what is considered like the golden age, you have a month's worth of watching.
Yeah. Yeah, I might give that a shot, because I never really watched The Simpsons much. I don't know, it just kind of never really appealed to me, but I've seen like scenes from it, and those scenes have made me laugh, so I'm sure it would be fun to experience. It's
a satire, so it makes, and they're very, I feel like recently they've gone a little more into like Family Guy realm, where they're a bit more silly, and they've definitely gone a bit more into the whole silly, this is a cartoon world. And they've always had that cartoon aspect to the world. That being said, they've always been very good at satiring like current America, the current world.
Yeah,
And
I did.
You can see that in their stuff.
I did hear something that was like from the like writing of a script to a finished episode. It's like months, like at least 6 months or something for The Simpsons, maybe 4 or something like that. And then for like South Park, because of the way they animate, it's like a week or 2 from the start of a script to the finished animation. And so they so like it's not as topical in the episode to episode thing. Like it would take them 6 months before they had a World War III scare episode or whatever, but whereas South Park could have one in a month and be right on it.
Yeah. No, I feel like that's definitely part of it. But like, and when I say they're very good at satiring what's going on in America, I just mean like any big events or the feel of America at the time. They're very good at satiring the feel.
Yeah, okay. I can see that.
So, but yeah, I feel like that's a very good series to watch. And if you have Disney Plus, I don't know if you do, it is worth it in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
I think we should hop into our first or our topic, because now from last week we are only doing one topic each week, because we kind of did a second topic last week. Or not last week, but a few weeks ago, last episode. But it was over 2 hours. And it was just not good. So we cut it down to 1 and it was an hour. So we're just going to do one topic, and that'll make for better listening, I think.
Agreed. It also lets us go more in depth on topics. I feel
and I guess we
won't feel pigeonholed.
Yeah, I should also say, so like we missed a couple weeks, but that was because I moved into an apartment, and so now me and my wife are out on our own, and it's a good. Woo! But I did not have my stuff set up for recording until now, so that's why it took so long. So, but now I think we're gonna be releasing them on Tuesdays, and it's gonna be great. So, with that being said, let's hop into our topic.
All right, so our topic for today is going to be, and this is going to be a fun one. Please don't hate us. It's going to be our fans and fandoms ruining their media / movies, games, whatever. Are they ruining the things they are fans of?
Mm-hmm.
Or so are they having a negative... I shouldn't even say ruining. I should say negative impact.
Yeah,
are they having a negative impact?
I would say no. I really don't think so. I separate fandom and creation. Like if you want to know what people think about it, yeah, go on Reddit, go on the forums and like watch YouTube videos about people talking about it or whatever. But if you just want the media, you can ignore the fans by just not going to those places, and so you can watch the media by itself, and it is unaffected by that. So I don't think they're having an impact at all on the media that they're a fan of, because it is so easily separable from it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But do people actually separate it? Like, is it like realistic to expect people to do that? I know that's...
Well,
like you can, but I'm asking for your average.
If they don't like it, then I think that the average person is capable of it. But it's the question is, do they want to separate themselves from it, or do they want to be engaged with the fandom? So if they're finding it, like you seem to find it, from thinking of this topic, if you seem to find that they are having a negative impact, then I think that most people, if they don't like the impact, would be capable of simply ignoring that side of the internet just by not going there,
I mean, I guess the only reason I ask and bring it up is because a few reasons. A, I listen to a lot of YouTube. I just because of the stuff I do. I like having background noise or things to listen to, and I could control it through autoplay, but at the same time, a lot of videos pop up about a lot of the things I watch just because of how YouTube's algorithm works. So I'm being like, I could choose to ignore those things, but I mean, most people don't. A lot of people do click on things involved into their fandoms. Also, like just around places. If there's a big enough fan base, if you're just walking around, you could be bombarded by it. One example would be, Star Wars, when the newest Star Wars movie first came out, no one would shut up about Star Wars, even before it actually was released. Everyone was talking about it. And I have to say, at least in most cases where I am, it was always negative. And there were even news articles before the movie was released to the public saying how it was going to be a train wreck. And it's just like, or why it was going to be good. And it's just like at a certain point, like, I get that you could avoid it, but I don't think your average person would. They're going to be drawn in. But more importantly, and this is, I think, a big thing we forget about, the companies and the producers and the people involved in the projects listen to these very loud outlets.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like just saying, because I can ignore it, even if every fan ignored it, who like is just like, oh, I'm in the middle, I don't want to hear this. Are the companies and the producers ignoring it?
Okay, so I can see that it's gonna have an impact on the media. That makes sense. And I can especially see that with one great example that I am very familiar with, which is My Little Pony. Partway through the second season, from the beginning, there was a following on like 4chan and stuff, but it was growing, especially partway through the second season, it was growing out of control. And so around the third or fourth season, I think you could see a shift in that they, like the writers now know that there are adult males watching the show. And so that could, and probably did, impact the way they wrote and the ideas that they put forward. So I mean, while they never because they weren't allowed, they never looked on like fan fiction sites and got ideas from the fans. But just knowing that that fan base exists and that there are adult men watching it and not just little girls, that probably changed something. And I think at the time, even a lot of bronies were saying that change was bad, and they wished the creators could go back to not knowing that adults watched it, because they fell in love with the first two seasons when they were making it for little girls. You know, they happened to like that part and not the part that the creators made after knowing that the new fandom was there. So I can definitely see how there is an impact, and I think it is completely subjective and case by case whether or not that impact is good or bad. And I think I would argue a lot of times the impact is good and it is seldom bad.
Okay. So I guess so one of the things I was going to bring up, there are a few media. I'm definitely bringing up more popular ones when I bring these up, because obviously I'm not going to bring up obscure things, because if it's obscure, it doesn't get more material added.
Yeah.
But like I actually want to start with Zelda.
Okay.
I've listened to a lot of Zelda fans and a lot of people who criticize Zelda. And what I find is very interesting is Zelda, at its most popular, was when Breath of the Wild came out. And it's also the least popular with hardcore fans. And I shouldn't say they hate it. I'm not saying they hate it. I'm saying it's definitely not their favorite. Ironically, it is the most popular Zelda. And that's not my opinion. It is like the flagship game of the Switch. It was a very big money-making title. And Zelda was not a money-making, like a big money bank before that. Did it make money? Yes. Was it like Call of Duty amount of money, definitely not. Breath of the Wild changed that, and I can honestly say it is the the most popular just because of money talking and units sold.
Yeah. Do you know, like, has it actually sold more units than like Ocarina of Time or Twilight Princess? Because Twilight Princess was the flagship of the Wii when it was first launched. Of course, it was on.
No, wasn't flagship Princess came out?
Yeah, it was on the GameCube as well.
I think. Yeah, definitely. Because that's
but just like how Breath of the Wild came out on the Wii U as well, but it was the flagship for the Switch. It launched the Switch with it, and so.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. But yes, it has. I looked it up before. Well, I was looking into this because I was curious. It has sold. It has made more money and sold better than any other Zelda title.
Yeah, I mean,
by far.
I think
there's a reason for the first year the Switch was out, it was sold out, and that every place that was selling it, like GameStop, was like, our bundle is Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
like it was. The bundles were just Breath of the Wild stuff. And also it's praised by people who didn't play Zelda until they played it, and in fact, some of them only play it. Ironically, people who are like the older Zelda games didn't really like it. But my point simply is, when they took a step back and they said, how are we going to redo this? They didn't listen to fans. If they had listened to fans, they wouldn't have gotten this game. And well, again, I understand actual true fans are going to say, well, it's not a true Zelda game, or it's not the best Zelda game. But like, to me, it's like, as someone who had a hard time enjoying the Zelda franchise, it is in my top 5 favorite video games. And I'm definitely not alone in liking it that much. So just from a money aspect, I feel like sometimes taking a step back from your fandom and drowning them out allows you to spread your creative wings, because you get funneled into a rut otherwise.
Yeah.
And you don't get to experience anything new. And that's one of the great things about Nintendo too, is they try new things, and sometimes they fuck it up bad. But other times they come up with revolutionary great stuff. So like in this, like I do feel like it's sometimes, as like, and also as someone who's writing now, like I can say, like, if you take a step back and you just decide, I'm not going to listen to anyone else, I'm going to do what I think is, like, I'm going to follow my vision and my dream for this, it really makes a difference. I had to enter a writing contest to be a part of what I'm a part of right now. And I shared some of my like when I entered my first part of my story, I had some like everyone I talked to criticized it one way or another, but I'm the one who won.
Yep.
So like, if I had listened to them, I wouldn't like, and I feel like definitely there's some personal bias there because of that. But I can also say it's a lot easier to follow your vision than the vision of a million screaming fans. Because that's not a pathway you can accurately like traverse.
Yeah, I think I'd like to kind of examine that concept for a bit. So like when you brought up that, with the hardcore Zelda fans, which I think I would number myself among, that Breath of the Wild is not the favorite, while it is the best, selling. And so, and I was thinking, like, so would I call it my favorite? I don't think that I would call it my favorite, but I think in the same way that we discussed last episode, I would call it the best. I do think that Breath of the Wild is the best Zelda game, but it's not my favorite because nostalgia does give more enjoyment to me through the older, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, and heck, even Twilight Princess to some degree. Like, I had a really good time playing that, and that wasn't even nostalgia.
Well, I mean, I don't like most Zelda games, and I enjoyed Twilight Princess. So like, that was more of an like it had a different feel than other Zelda games, and it was definitely a bit more mean to the player.
Yeah,
while still having that Zelda feel. And it was it was darker. It was like, just from tone, like, I'm sure like you could make the argument that Majora's Mask is darker in story, but it also is like the way it's like made is not quite as dark, I don't think. it's eerie, but it's not as dark. Whereas Twilight Princess had a dark feel to it. It was edgier.
Yeah. I think that's definitely what they were
that
going
makes
for,
sense.
especially from the backlash with the Wind Waker. So once again, their art or their games, their media is being influenced by fans. There was a lot of hate toward Wind Waker for its art style, which I love, but like a lot of people had a problem with. So it's kind of, I definitely see it.
It's just ironic because a lot of the most colorful Zelda games are some of my favorites. So that's actually really, I feel like that's really weird. I also love the art style of Wind Waker, so that's actually a surprise to me that got that much criticism.
I think
I really enjoyed the art style.
It was mainly that, so after Majora's Mask, after the N64, when the GameCube was starting out, before the Wind Waker came out for it, there was a tech demo of an Ocarina of Time looking adult Link fighting like some beast. I think it was like a spider, like Goma or something, and maybe Ganondorf was in it too, but I don't remember. But it was like with GameCube level graphics. It showed like a cutscene of him fighting the creature and killing it and stuff. And so everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for the next Zelda on the GameCube. It's going to look so awesome." And then Wind Waker comes out. And so it was a lot of expectations were built, and then a hard left turn was made in the art style direction. So I think most fans would look back on it and with fondness and say, "Oh yeah, I did play it, and it was actually really good, and I do like the way it looked. It was very peaceful and good." And with all that ocean, I don't think that a realistic art style would have been good for it anyway. And like most people would acknowledge that now, looking back on it, because hindsight is 2020. But at the time, there was backlash.
Gotcha. Well, it actually brings me into the other argument I have for it. It's called the mere exposure effect. It's a psychological concept, and it's about the more you're exposed to something, and especially something you were exposed to first, the more likely you are to like it. Whereas if you don't get that, the opposite is true. The more likely you are to dislike it. So one example I can give is everyone. I'm going to move on to different media for this one, even though you just already gave a perfect reason for that, which is people were exposed to a different art style with an adult Link with a different idea. So that's what they had is what they wanted, and they didn't get it. But I'm not trying to hate on people who do fan theories. I like fan theories, but I do think they're having a negative impact, especially on YouTube. And I'm bringing up Star Wars for this one. Everyone I listen to nowadays, by the way, spoiler alert, I'm bringing up all three of the new
heavy
Star
spoilers
Wars before I go any further. So pause now, and I'll make "I like waffles" phrase when I'm done. But
how's that going to work? If they
that's a good
pause,
point.
they can't hear
sorry,
you.
just don't listen to this episode.
Just skip forward like a little bit. Skip forward 5 or 10 minutes.
Sorry guys. But anyways, a lot of people nowadays are that, again, this is just, I understand that's what I've been exposed to, but it's things I'm watching online, popular YouTubers, and just people I'm around who are saying the same idea, as well as people from the movie. They are saying that Rey would have been more accepted if she were a Skywalker, but she turned out to be a Palpatine. Personally, I love that. She turns out to be the granddaughter of the most powerful Sith Lord, the one who actually conquered the galaxy. And she became a Jedi. But she wasn't. She was a Skywalker. She was that instead of a Skywalker. And everyone is saying, "Oh, it's just so stupid they didn't make her a Skywalker." And I don't understand it. And when I explain to them why it makes sense and it's a good idea, I'm just like, they're like, "Oh, I guess, but I still think it would have been cooler if she was a Skywalker." But you know what? Long before episode 8 came out, where they just said her parents are nobodies, they said, everyone was like, "Oh, she's going to be a Skywalker, and it's going to be so good. She's going to be Luke's daughter." And everyone was theorizing it, and everyone was talking about it. and then it didn't happen. And everyone got so upset. And even to this day, even when they gave a, just story-wise, it is satisfying to me. But it's irrelevant because we all wanted her to be a Skywalker.
I don't know.
Or I guess a lot of people wanted her to be that. And they were exposed to it.
I distinctly
for a long
remember
time.
A very in-depth conversation at one of my old houses with you and some of our friends about how, like, before 8 came out, that we thought Rey was going to be a Palpatine, and then when 8 came out and said her parents are nobodies, like, we were like, oh well, okay. But like, then now it's like, oh, that was a misdirect. We had it right the whole time, you know. And with all of the, like, I feel like with all of the back and forth in that conversation, it came to kind of a consensus that her being a Palpatine would be the best for the series, and for the, like, that would be the most satisfying. Her being a Skywalker would be lame, in fact, was what we thought. So, but then again, that was just our conversation in our friend group. So yeah. I didn't like consume all the media and all the fans and other fans, like, you know, talking about it. So, you know, that's kind of.
And I think that's what it ultimately comes down to. I actually, and the reason I got that idea was actually because I don't remember their name, but they're a very obscure YouTuber. I don't even think I could find them again if I wanted to, unless I tried searching their video on YouTube. That's if they still exist. But I didn't get it from a popular YouTuber. I like, it just came up as an idea on my YouTube ideas, and I was like, I'll listen to it. I think, like, I'm willing to hear this out. And I thought it made sense, but just like story wise, like, I thought it was a good idea. And you're right, we did have a discussion about that, and I did bring it up. But I also remember during that topic, I had to argue to get people to agree with me. It wasn't like everyone jumped on it and was like, oh yeah, that's a neat idea. They all were like, wait, what? Like, why? Like, I had to pull people away
and show them evidence of, like, the way she thrusts during that for her own, like, you know, instinctual fighting with the I almost called it a keyblade. Oh my gosh, with the lightsaber.
Wow.
Wow. Or like the fact that she's so quick to anger. Even before episode 8 came out, you could tell she was an angry person. Like, even when, like, especially when she was fighting, you could just see the hate in her face. In fact, that's something I don't feel like Star Wars characters get enough credit for. Like Hayden Christensen, I loved him in episode 3 when he would get, like, angry. Like, he felt intimidating. Yeah, he didn't get the best lines, but I don't think that's on him. Sometimes you can only make shitty lines so good. That being said, when his best performances are when he didn't have to speak. When he showed you with his facial and body expressions. Like, you felt like he was Vader in those moments.
I don't know. It seemed a little emo to me.
I mean, there was definitely that. He was edgier. But this is I'm in love Vader, so. But, like, he looked like murderous. He didn't just look like he was throwing a tantrum. He looked like he wanted to kill. Or not even that he wanted to kill. He was just, I'm gonna kill. He had that air of intimidation about him.
Yeah.
And that's something even Rey as a character, like, as much as, like, I'm sure there are actually plenty of valid criticisms about the new Star Wars movies, but them aside, I think that she was very good at having the intimidating when I'm angry air about her. She had that aura.
Yeah.
And I that's part of the reason I liked it, was because I grew tired of a universe that was all about one family fucking up the galaxy, because that's what episodes 1 through 6 are. It's one family name fucking up the galaxy.
And where did that family name even come from? Because, like, that wasn't Anakin's mom's maiden name, was it? Skywalker?
I think it is. I think she was Shmi Skywalker. Okay. I'm pretty sure.
So it was her name.
He didn't have a dad.
But all that started with Anakin, with kind of like an immaculate conception kind of happening, right?
Yeah. I first off, you should never have to read movies or comics. Anyone who says all this stuff
giving a hard time to books or comics fix. Books or comics should not have to fix a movie. That being said, there is like in one of the books, the older books, they explain how when Plagueis was messing around with creating life using the Force to balance out the dark wizardry he was doing, created life in Shmi. He essentially, to create balance while he was messing with life forces, he accidentally created Anakin. So the Force made Anakin to balance out what Plagueis was messing with.
That's interesting.
So, and that's like one of the cool things about the Star Wars universe is the Force has its own will. It inherently wants to balance itself out, and it tries, and it never favors the light or the dark. It simply wants balance. But yeah, like, and like, I think that like that's something to point out is, and the other thing about the Star Wars series I wanted to bring up, they listened every time. For episode when they bought Star Wars, episode 7 didn't come out for a really long time, especially if you compare it to the time span between the episode 7, 8, and 9. Between the time they bought it and the time they released episode 7, I think it was like 6 or 7 years. It was not a short time. So they took time and they put a little bit of thought into it. And what they ultimately decided was they wanted, because they needed to get old fans in and still have some new fans show up. So they made something that felt like in one of the original movies. And it was to get people to convince them to put their feet back in the water. Mm-hmm. And it worked. But the biggest complaint it had was it was just episode 4 with a new skin.
Yeah.
and I mean, I can't argue it's untrue. So, but it was still one of my, I still enjoyed it. I think I would actually really enjoy the new Star Wars movies if it wasn't just for the last one. But
the last one ruined it.
Then episode, but
for you,
yeah, I'm gonna get to it over time. So in episode 8, they were like, "Oh, well, people complained that it was too much like the old one." So the director was like, "Fine, we're gonna literally do everything that goes against Star Wars." Mm-hmm. It was practically like Star Wars had an identity crisis, and it needed to go through a phase to like show I'm not like my parents or I'm not like my family. Mm-hmm. Like, and if you watch it, it really did go against everything previous Star Wars movies stood by, and it just kept throwing people for loops and loops and loops. But then they also didn't want to lose their old fan base, so at the end of the day, they kind of just stepped back on their own feet and were like, well, we were gonna like we made it sound like the Jedi weren't gonna be a thing anymore, but they're gonna be a thing still. Also, Rey totally believes in the light side, despite the fact that we've been making her question this the whole time. Like they stepped back on their own feet, but there were a lot of parts in the movie that really went against the grain of Star Wars, like the 1 in a million plan that ends up not working out. Mm-hmm. It didn't pay off. The heroes didn't succeed in their scheme. There was a lot in that movie that just went totally against the Star Wars feel of things. And then they got backlash for that.
Yeah.
So in the newest movie, they went out of their way to retcon everything from 8. The girl Rose from episode 8, mm-hmm. I don't want to call her the new Jar Jar in that I think she's a bad character, because I don't even think her character was that bad. Again, you can only do so much with bad writing. That being said, they just are like, oh, she pretty much nopes herself out of the movie by being like, oh, I have to fix things. I have to be a mechanic. And it's like, okay. It's just like with Jar Jar. It's like, oh, people didn't like Jar Jar. He's a diplomat now. And he's eloquent. Mm-hmm. He speaks politely now. Like, it was like, and also we're putting him to the sidelines. Like, they did the same thing with that. So, and then also there were a lot of complaints about how like, oh, it's dumb how Rey's just naturally gifted and awesome. And I have my own feelings on that one. I'm in the middle on it. That being said, their solution to that was, we're going to make everyone stupidly strong. In fact, it's going to be more like a superhero movie than a Star Wars movie. Like, I always made fun of it, saying they were all just a bunch of space wizards with laser guns and laser swords before, but this one was pretty bad. There were 1,000 Star Destroyers. Every one of them was capable of blowing up a planet, so every one of them was a Death Star. Palpatine is back, and he can summon lightning from the sky that can down entire starships.
Jeez.
Like fleets. The Force is now less of a just like, oh, it's neat that you can pull things and shoot lightning. No, now she can actually mess with space and time.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we're going to create a new kind of Force entity called the Didact, I think is what it was called. And it's literally just, this is like the culmination of all of this side of the Force. So Sidious became the dark side itself, but then they make Rey the light side itself.
Man.
Also, Snoke was just a clone, and he was oh well, that's what he was. Just like, it was just if you watch every movie, you can actually see how the fan base affected it. And that does not excuse poor writing and poor decision making. That being said, studios and companies are listening to us, and they're basing their decisions off of it. So if you are constantly being negative and constantly complaining, you know what the best way to get a new, like, if you want your series to get better at this point is, especially if Disney owns it apparently, shut the fuck up.
Well, I don't know.
Like, I'm not saying don't use your freedom of speech. I'm saying they are listening to you, and they are very bad at it. But also, they're trying to give 1,000 different screaming fans what they want, and you cannot use the 1,000 tantrums on the internet to create a cohesive story.
Well, I mean, were the Star Wars movies worse than they could have been had they shut themselves out and not tried to listen to the fans? You know, can you actually show with like evidence or examples that what it became is definitely worse than what it could have been had they not listened? Because I'm thinking if they hadn't listened, maybe it would have just been the ramblings of a madman, you know, with no connection to who wanted to watch it to begin with. And it could have just petered off after 7 because no one liked it, you know. So them listening to it, while it kind of made it a little schizophrenic, it could have been better than it could have been. It's a lot of like hypothetical and stuff, but like, do you get what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to say definitely that it was a negative impact.
I think it was negative in that the backlash of every movie was bad enough for them to drastically change direction. But I also don't think the amount of upset... Well, actually, in one case, I know for a fact the backlash wasn't as bad as it was, because it turned out there were hackers and trolls definitely messing with results. Disney also doesn't have its hands clean. They were definitely messing with Rotten Tomatoes scores, and Rotten Tomatoes was in on it. That being said, for episode 8... there were definitely people purposely trying to inflame people and make it look worse than it was. But even then, like, my argument for why I think it would have been better would have been as simple as, again, there were definitely bad decision makers involved with this. The problem was Disney saw this as, we want to make money instead of having a vision. George Lucas had a vision, and he stuck with his vision. They kept changing. They changed the director twice, and their non-episode series, I think Rogue One went through like 3 directors, if I remember correctly. That was just one movie. So, like, it needed a singular vision, and the backlash is part of the reason we didn't get one director, as well as just poor decision making. That's why I said I don't want to like excuse some of the things they did as a company. But we had an impact. And well, actually, one one example I can give wouldn't be Star Wars, but I could give a count like one that is doing this, and I think you might enjoy it.
Yeah.
Rick and Morty. So I don't know if you knew this, but they've been greenlit for, or I don't know if greenlit is the correct term for what media they're in, because I know that's how Netflix does it, but they are up and running for, they have a contract for 70 more episodes.
Yeah.
We are at a point where they aren't trying to fight for each season.
Yeah.
They are getting a lot of episodes now. They're going to be a mainstay for a little while now. And episode, was it the third episode of the season? The one with the cat, or is that episode 2?
I don't think I've seen one with a cat, and I've seen the first 3.
The first 3. Well, there's only 4 out.
Oh,
I think.
what?
Or is it 5? No, I think it's only 4. There's only 4 episodes.
So maybe it was the 4th or 5th. Then I don't know. I don't think I remember a cat.
No, the fourth was a one with shit. I can't say it without ruining it for you. Anyways, Jerry goes to Florida, and
Okay.
and then I believe it's the one where the dragon one. Yeah, it's the dragon one. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly. Maybe not. No, yeah, it is the dragon one. It's definitely the dragon one. You haven't seen the dragon one?
No.
Then you haven't seen 3 episodes. Okay.
Really?
Well, I'm sorry for what I'm about to do to
I
you.
saw the first 3. I don't
But
know.
this is on you at this
well,
point.
no, you're fine. I don't care.
Anyways, there's the side plot with Jerry and the cat, and the cat can talk, and Jerry wants to know why, and the cat says, "Don't think about it, just have fun." And and it's just that kind of attitude for their whole side adventure. And then at the end, Rick's like, "Oh well, I want to know why you can talk." And the cat's like, "Well, isn't it more fun if you just don't have to think about it and you just have fun?" And he's like, "Why can't I have both?" And he scans the cat's mind and sees what's going on, and then he throws up. And then Jerry does the same. And they still don't tell you why the cat can talk the whole time. Just and if you go online, you can see a lot of people who like doing Rick and Morty fan theories who really don't like that episode, because it was literally Dan Harmon saying, I'm not gonna let fan theories, and I'm not gonna entertain this. This is my series, and I'm gonna fuck around like I always have.
Mm-hmm.
And you can actually see that in previous episodes too. It's just it really wasn't clear what he was doing until now. If you look at with Evil Morty, the Citadel of Ricks episode when he gets elected the president, at the end of the episode, Rick even says, or Morty's like, "I wonder what happened at the Citadel," and Rick's like, "I don't know, but there's no way it'll ever have an impact on us." I genuinely think they are never going to intertwine those two things again. And it kind of makes sense. It's going to be like it's going to be their equivalent of Treehouse of Horrors, a story within a story. And they're just going to have Evil Morty running around the universe. And it's going to be fun.
I mean, I'm happy with just that.
I understand, but
it's funny enough.
I understand, but with these newest they've said that because now they have 70 episodes they have to work with, they're going to go out of their way. They're still going to follow like a time frame, and they're going to still make sure to be careful not to step over their own feet as far as their canon. But they're also going to be stepping away from they want to be the new Simpsons. That is their goal. An episodic series where it isn't pigeonholed into a certain direction simply because they made something canon.
Yeah.
And if you look at the people who complain about it, so this season actually, and I should point this out, and this might change in the future. So if you watch this a year from now, this might be different, because currently the Rotten Tomatoes scores have a lot less reviews than previous seasons, obviously because of time. But it has the highest critic score it's ever had, where it has the lowest user score. But the lowest user score is still pretty high. It's not a bad number. It shows that it is a success. But it's a few percent under. But when I actually, and this probably would have been a better use of my time, but I was on break at work a few times, and I figured why not. I started reading them because I was curious because of this debate we were going to have.
And everyone complaining about it did one of two things. They said it wasn't as smart as it used to be. And I'm like, yeah, no. You're just being a troll because it's just as smart as it's ever been. In fact, the series is designed to kind of screw with you in the way it does.
I really liked the Shy Pooper one. Like, that was really, like, meta in the way that it went, kind of...
Well, and it stepped away from some of the sci-fi stuff, but that doesn't mean it wasn't being smart. Like,
yeah.
But anyways,
what it revealed about him was really cool.
But the number one,
I liked it because I couldn't predict what he would do next in his and what he had set up and why he was doing what he was doing. And until the end when it kind of became a little clearer, but it's still like, you can still, it leaves a lot of room for wondering,
and you can follow it. It's
really
not
cool.
only good at throwing you off, but you can follow it. It doesn't throw you off by making you feel stupid. It throws you off by simply subverting your expectations without being insulting. But anyways, the biggest complaint I saw in there was people complaining that it wasn't we didn't get it didn't go into detail on whether or not Beth was a clone or not, or it didn't go into detail on what him trying to mess with their the fact that Jerry and Beth are together, stuff like that. Essentially saying, I don't like it because it's not referencing its past and it's not setting up a linear story canon for us to follow. Everyone else who liked it just said it was Rick and Morty. It was actually, and a lot of people compared it to season 1. The people were happy with it. Which is funny because the end of season 3 said, and again, I think this is really funny that the way they do this, and this is why I think it's planned to an extent, by Dan Harmon, or at least someone in that room, where Beth says, crap, sorry, I just lost what she said. Oh yeah, in a lot of ways, it's going to be like season 1 again. I thought that was really cool.
That's funny.
They're trying to go back to an episodic way, and it makes sense though, because to have a 70 episode series, and especially if you want to have a long runtime, you kind of need to be able to have flexibility. And following the trends people want them to follow kind of limits your flexibility. Whereas just being able to have random Rick and Morty adventures, I mean, I'll watch that. I would love that. That's one of the things, like I said, that's one of the things I like about The Simpsons. It's able to stretch its wings by not holding itself down. And it's very good about doing that. And they want to be the next Simpsons. That's their goal. So, a lot of fans were trying to make some misogynist and even in some cases some really alt-right claims. And the first episode really makes fun of that. And I like it, specifically the alt-right part. Before season 4 came out, there was a lot of I don't want to say right-wing groups. I'm just going to come out and say it. Fascist Nazi groups and a lot of really misogynist groups trying to hold up Rick and Morty as this is why we're right kind of thing, or this represents us. And Dan Harmon even came out and denounced them, and he even said that he told everyone that Beth is his favorite character. And I don't think he was lying, because actually if you look at Beth, he gives her a certain amount of the writing on her I think is done very well. And I could see why she could be a favorite character. She's written very well.
Yeah.
But then in the episode 1, there's a lot of
I
Nazi
don't see the connection.
In episode 1, Rick references the fact that when he gets being brought into body after body after body.
It's
since when are there so many Nazis? That was the joke was all these Nazi groups suddenly being like, Rick and Morty represents us. And Dan Harmon, it was a meta joke of, since when are there so many Nazis? It kind of took them off guard, So
see, what I don't get though is how it would represent them. What,
dude? I'm gonna be honest.
In all of Rick and Morty has white supremacists propaganda. I don't see how they could.
I agree with you, but I've decided not to think about it because, as the cat said, I'm gonna be happier just having fun with it and not thinking about it. I'm just going to accept that crazy, stupid douchebags think crazy, stupid douchebag things. and I'm gonna move on because I also don't. I don't like getting in the mud with the pigs if I can help it. I will if I have to,
Yeah.
but I try not to. And that's just a part of the internet I don't really want on my search history. My fiance is also Hispanic, so going to Nazi websites would be a red flag for her. And I love her, and I'd like her to stick around. So,
Yeah, don't mess that up.
Yeah, exactly. I could really F some stuff up. So I'm just gonna, you know what? I'm not even gonna touch that. As Millie and Ants would say.
Yep.
Not even gonna touch that. You do you, man. Yeah. So I feel like I'm not saying that fans and fandoms will always have a negative impact. I'm saying we are listened to. And sometimes I think sometimes we think we know what we want, and we don't understand that our vision isn't doable through another person. And if they try to pandering to me is a bad word. I don't think there's a good way of pandering. I heard someone say there's a good way of pandering, but I don't think that's doable. Pandering is lowering yourself and abandoning your vision just to give people what they want. And the irony is some of our happiest and best fandoms out there came from people not listening to other people telling them this is a bad idea or this will fail. George Lucas had to fight hard for Star Wars, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure if you went to a Zelda fan convention and tried to show them Breath of the Wild, they'd say, "Oh, this is gonna suck. This is gonna flop."
Yeah.
I'm very at a certain point to have a vision and make your creative work go. You just kind of have to block out everyone else and go with it. And does that mean you had a good idea? No, but it definitely means you have the ability to make something great without being kind of funneled into, what I would say is a creative noose. Oh yeah. Also, and I feel like this is an important one. The director of Logan said that the reason he thinks he's turned down some jobs, and the reason for that is directors are starting to leave some of these bigger projects, well-known, liked directors. They're not touching a lot of the newer projects and fandoms out there. Because right now, writing for certain series is like writing a new addition to the Bible. And it's too easy to upset fans. And essentially it's what it comes down to is, he said a lot of hacks and crappy directors are going to start getting these jobs. Because the people who are true revolutionaries in their field aren't going to want to touch it because of the possible problems that come with it. I like I said, I really feel like to an extent we have to let people do their thing. And if it sucks, it sucks. And we can complain about it after the fact.
Yeah.
Within reason. But
I feel like,
let our money do the talking, you know?
I feel like though you're kind of I would rather put that responsibility to have the temperance you're talking about on the professional creators that are making all these things and not the amateur fans who are bickering about them online. You know, I don't think it would be possible for the fans to temper their criticisms and expectations and not influence in the way they are. I think your message would do better and would accomplish more in the ears of those who are actually making the thing. And
I will agree with you 100% on that.
To not let the fans influence them as much, then that will have a greater impact. I don't know. That'll do more than talking to the fans would, I think.
I agree with you on that.
But unfortunately, we don't have their ears. So
if we do, have neat, but
a very small amount of ears that are, and most of which are consuming media, not making it. So, yeah, I guess I don't know what to say. Just that, be careful of what you say on the internet. You know?
True, I agree with you. The people who really could benefit the most from this topic would be people who are creators. They need to start not listening to people. But sadly,
Twitter is a very dangerous weapon towards creators.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, the director of Logan I feel like has every right to be afraid to direct any big possible pictures, because again, he feels like, I feel like I'm writing for something that like could potentially backlash beyond what he could, handle, or it would be a blotch on his career.
Yeah.
Like I understand it. Like we as fans really need to, I guess I would say two things. Creators should start following their vision, and if their vision sucks, it is what it is. But fans really need to stop this pitchfork and torch behavior towards movies, because at the end of the day, we are going to drive away the true revolutionaries from the series we like. Because sadly, the way things are going, corporations are going to start owning a lot of these properties, and we want the good directors in charge of them. We don't want to drive them away.
Yeah.
So stop ranting for 2 hours about how Disney owning Star Wars is the biggest travesty in mankind. We get it. You don't like it. Calm your tits. Like that's what I would say.
Yeah.
I feel like we're having a negative impact.
Yeah.
I think we might be at a point of no return though. I think it is at a point where companies and corporations and directors need to just say, fuck it, I'm doing what I want.
Yeah.
They need to trust their talents.
I think a lot of that would also come down to the company and not just the director. Because I'm pretty sure it's the company, it's Disney who is listening to all these people and trying to appease them all. It's not the director who's like obsessed with the image of people and what he's going to make and wants to make them happy. He wants to make something good. And a lot of, I feel like the directors are being influenced by the studios, and the producers and the head honchos that are investing in this enterprise, and they are the ones that are influencing the director, and they are being influenced by us. So it's kind of a third, there's a middleman in there, but that middleman just wants to make money. So there's no real talking to him about it. There's no real correcting that part of it. So yeah, it just has to be, it's hard to say though, to fans of a thing, to people that are fanatic, just don't care so much about the media that you consume. It doesn't define you, find your own identity separated from the media that you consume. It's just something you're watching, something that's entertaining, something that's fun. It's not you. So it doesn't really matter that much if someone along the line does something bad about it. You don't have to kill yourself over it or anything. You don't have to make such a huge deal, because a lot of it is going to be, they're going to correct too far the wrong way. Just trust them, that they understand, they see what you see, they know it wasn't as good as it could have been, and they're going to try to do better next time. You don't have to yell at them incessantly about it, or else it's going to overcorrect. So just a little temperance goes a long way.
Yep.
That being said, on the internet, I don't know, I don't have much faith that that's going to happen, but here's hoping.
As our podcast is now an angry mob attacks our podcast.
Yeah.
We'll get our jokes on you, views, bitches.
Well, anyways, I think that's about it for this episode. So
agreed. I feel like we reached a good point.
All enjoyed. Did you have any closing remarks or?
No, I feel like we reached a great conclusion. We reached an understanding. Definitely one of our better understandings.
Yeah, definitely. Well, cool. So this episode is going up on Stitcher, Apple, Google Podcasts, all the good stuff, and anywhere you can plug in an RSS feed. It's going up on YouTube. It's got a whole playlist on the Nothing Specialty channel. There's no it's just Nothing Specialty. But then also we have an email, so you can send any kind of feedback you want to nothingspecialtypodcast@gmail.com. And we've got a Twitter, Nothing Specialty without the G, and a Facebook at Nothing Specialty. So follow us there, subscribe, get updates, and find out when the episodes are coming out. But they should be consistent with being released on Tuesday. So we're going to try for that and hope for the best. So thank you all for listening. You have a good one.
Have a good week, guys.
Bye. Is that a good conclusion?